On today's show, Kevin Durant calls game against the Suns, and the Rockets defense steps up when it matters most. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Inject that Kevin Durant game winner directly into my veins. What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, Kevin Durant calls game against his former team, the Phoenix Suns. Rockets now 3-0 against the Suns this season. Final score 100-97. KD with the clutch bucket late to get the Rockets the win, spearheading the offense throughout the game. The defense locking up, locking down, locking every which way that they needed to, stepping up when they needed it most in this game. Rockets being able to rely on their defense once again as a team is incredible. Jabari Smith Jr.'s big second half in this one, an Alperen Şengün injury update, clock malfunctions. We got a lot to get to from this one. As always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day. First, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. And yeah, thanks for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Of course, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, for being one of our amazing everydayers. 197 final score. And man, this was absolutely a game of runs. Like, it felt like, Rockets have a run, then the Suns have a run, Rockets have a run, Suns have a run. And Rockets got the last laugh because they had the final run, if you will. This game, first off, the Rockets defense in the second half of this one was next level, holding the Suns to 18 in the third and just 19 in the fourth quarter. But this was a game, the Rockets were actually leading this game 94-87 about midway through the fourth quarter. With 6:04 left in the fourth, Jabari hits a free throw to give the Rockets a 7-point lead. And over the next 4 minutes and some change, Rockets had some solid defensive possessions, but they just could not buy a bucket offensively. Like, they played some solid overall. You hold any team to less than 20 points in a quarter, you're playing some great defense. But the Rockets defense did have some slips. The Suns made some buckets, and they sprung back out and had a 97-94 lead. And in the midst of that little 10-0 run that the Suns went on was a really egregious sequence where Devin Booker gets to the free throw line, makes the first one, misses the second one. Okogie gets the offensive rebound. It finds its way back to Devin Booker. He cans a three-pointer. They get a 4-point play off of that one possession. They're down one. Booker comes down, Brooks comes down, hits a fadeaway. Booker hits a couple more free throws, and before you know it, Rockets go from leading by 7 to trailing by 3 with just under 2 minutes to go. And from this point on, Rockets only hit 2 more buckets. With just under 2 minutes to go, Amen Thompson has this ridiculous left to right, slicing crossover through 2 defenders, absorbs contact, finishes right at the rim, gets the and one. He was just perfect from the charity stripe, 7 of 7 in this game. Great job by Amen getting downhill. And then the Rockets pitch an absolute shutout the rest of the way. The final 2 minutes and some change, after allowing that 10-0 Phoenix run to regain the lead, the Rockets held the Suns scoreless over the final 2 minutes and 12 seconds, basically, of the game. And there were a couple, it wasn't just like good, like these weren't just good defensive possessions. These were Rockets had not one, but 2 different 24-second shot clock violations in that final stretch of game. None more important than the possession where it was tied up 97 all And it was basically the final Suns possession of the game, 29 seconds on the clock. And Tari Eason D'ing up against Devin Booker guarded him about as perfectly as one could do. It was like he was trying to set himself up for the same exact game-winning shot, game-winning three that he hit against the OKC Thunder the night before. But instead, Tari Eason guards it beautifully. Booker doesn't even make it behind the three-point line. Like Tari anticipates the little chest bump that Booker likes, or the little shoulder bump that Booker likes to do, guards it beautifully, doesn't undercut him, doesn't foul him, forces him to a tough, contested 20-foot fadeaway. And Booker doesn't even draw iron, right? Straight glass, 24-second violation. Rockets get the ball back with 5.1 on the clock. And who else but Kevin Durant showing up, ice in his veins, to knock down the game-winning three-pointer. Rockets call timeout. They inbound the ball to KD. And this was one of the few moments that we've seen this season where the Rockets were just, look, this is what you got KD for, right? You got Kevin Durant for these moments. And so for the Rockets to be able to just identify, hey, get the ball to KD, we're going to live with whatever the outcome is, right? And KD walked it up. There was no immediate double team, no blitz to try and get the ball out of his hands. He walked right into that right wing three-pointer, dribbled directly into his pull-up three, bang, only his second three-pointer of the game. He was just 2 for 12 in this one. He was saying in his post-game interview that he kept telling the guys, he was like, I feel it, like one's going to drop, it's going to drop, it's going to drop. And he just kept trying, and he hit the biggest shot of the night with 1.1 second left on the clock. I swear it is absurd watching a future first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest to ever do it, hit big shot after big shot in a Rockets jersey. It is really cool to witness. And then the Rockets, there was still 1.1 seconds left on the clock. Still a chance for the Suns, but who else other than also former Phoenix Sun, Josh Okogie, to come in and get the final defensive stop of that sequence. Suns try to inbound the ball to Booker, and Okogie had this play sniffed out like he was a free safety, just jumped the passing lane, got two hands on the ball, and was like falling out of bounds with it as he caught it. And Booker wrestled it away from him, but had to reach down and snatch it away from him at his ankles, basically, and then turn and just throw a prayer up at the rim that really didn't have a chance of going in. So shout out to Josh Okogie, Tari Eason, and Josh Okogie for the two biggest defensive plays of this game. Rockets held the Suns scoreless. Kevin Durant, ice in his veins, biggest shot of the night to give Houston the win. And look, it's phenomenal watching this Rockets defense getting back to a place where they can rely on their defense to win them games, right? Even when the offense was kind of yucky at times, this was one of the closest wins that we've had to last season's Rockets, to the 24-25 version of this team, where they could get you some ugly defense first wins. And that's exactly what happened in this game. The Rockets offense was not pretty in this one. Kevin Durant, just 9 of 21 shooting. That's not good efficiency for KD, right? Across the entire board for the Rockets, poor efficiency throughout the lineup, throughout the entire rotation, but it didn't matter. The Rockets hit the big shots. They hit more tough shots than the Suns did down the stretch of this game, and their defense stepped up when they needed it most. They've got Kevin Durant, who's a pretty good cheat code at the end of games, and despite being 1 for 11 going into that final shot, he hit the biggest shot of the night. Awesome win, quality win against a quality Phoenix Suns team, coming off of a huge win against the OKC Thunder in their own right. Just unreal stuff. Hearing the MVP chants after the game for KD was nuts as well, and it left us with this amazing interview question from Rockets courtside reporter Vanessa Richardson.
What's it like to hear everybody at Toyota Center chanting MVP?
Being booed in here so many years, being an opposing player and being booed, it feels good to come out here and get some love. I love Houston. I love Texas. I'm just grateful and representing the Rockets.
An incredible quote from KD and a great way to cap off an awesome Rockets win against a very good Phoenix Suns team. Coming up, want to get into the other areas from this game, how the defense looked throughout this one, the chippiness between the Rockets and Suns, Jabari Smith Jr.'s big second half, Alperen Şengün's injury update, and more. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel's making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action actually starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and different surprises. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Today's episode is also brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our businesses and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades that you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Quo makes everything easier. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed out on. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Remember, the best way to help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Also, you know what this means. A big win, a game-winning three-pointer by Kevin Durant against his former squad. I know Ben Garcia asked for mercy, but hell no, Ben.
Release the hounds.
Go swing by Locked On Suns. Tell them Locked On Rockets sent you by. We love flooding the comments section of opposing teams. Go do that right now. Go ahead on over to Locked On Suns. Tell them the hounds coming by. All right. Elsewhere in this game, look, this game early on, especially like the overall game flow of this one, the Suns were just absolutely on fire early in this game from three. They couldn't miss. They shot 7 of 13 from long distance in the first quarter alone. Like the 3-point shooting for the Suns just fell off a cliff. It felt like they couldn't miss anything in the first quarter. They finished the game. They went 7 of 13 in the first quarter. They finished their game shooting the rest of the way 7 for 25. Wait, 7 for 25? That's not the right math. 7 for 28? It's even worse. Yeah, it was bad. Like the Suns 3-point shooting just completely cratered after that first quarter, but it felt like they were going to have one of those nights where opposing team just flat out could not miss against the Rockets. And it was a weird, like, early going, right? Like Suns jumped out to an early 7-2 lead. Then the Rockets went on their little run. Then the Suns went on another little run. It really did feel like a game of total runs. And shout out to, what the hell with the early game clock issues, man? I'll tell you what, whether that was some home cooking to stop Jordan Goodwin, who looked like he was about to torch the Rockets for 30 after hitting 3 straight triples in the first quarter, no idea what all that was about. But the clock issues in Toyota Center, I've never seen anything like it. It was one of the weirdest set of circumstances in this game, and I had it logged right here. There were 6 clock malfunctions in the first quarter alone. Then there was another clock malfunction at the top of the second quarter. Then there was a long stoppage of play while they were trying to figure out the clocks. Then they came back, had another clock malfunction. So if you're counting, we're up to 8 clock malfunctions at this point. And then they played the rest of the second half without a working clock. Like, it was nuts. Shout out to the real MVP of the game, Rockets PA announcer Jonathan Sanford, who was on the PA address system acting as the shot clock, like announcing how much time was left in the quarter, announcing 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7, 6, like doing countdowns, that whole thing. I've never once seen anything like that happen in an NBA game. I've seen them break out like the on the court shot clocks before, like setting them up in the corners to where they're not above the basket, like old school style. I've never seen that happen because the clock wasn't working. Thankfully, they got it fixed in the second half, but that was just a level of absurdity that I've never even personally experienced during an NBA game. That was kind of nuts to live and experience. But yeah, so that like weirdly enough, the clock malfunctions actually probably played to the Rockets' favor. Like the Suns were so unconscious from 3 in the first quarter of this game that like dead period probably like iced out the Suns a little bit to where, I mean, Jordan Goodwin was not the same after that first quarter, right? Royce O'Neal calmed down a little bit. He still wound up shooting 5 for 12 for the game, but it completely iced out the Suns shooters after that insanely hot first quarter that they had. So maybe a little bit of home cooking by the Rockets stadium crew, unplug some wires and don't plug them back in until the second half once the Suns are good and cold. No, I kid. But credit to Toyota Center staff for getting that thing up and running for the second half. Credit to Space City Home Network too for like trying to keep the score bug updated. Like I think manually at one point in time, like they were just like manually updating the graphic. It was kind of a cluster to watch them go through. But this game, it really felt like, the Rockets lived through the hot shooting of the Suns in that first half. And then as the second half just even starting the second half, like right out of the gate, it felt like there was a bit more defensive energy, a little bit more defensive intensity coming out of halftime. And this was a game that had some chippiness. And I think that there was a stretch in this game where it had a chance to go really sideways. And it was really early, top of the third quarter. Rockets went down 67-56. They went down 11. They went down multiple times by double digits, right? They went down by 13 at one point later in the game as well. But go down by 11, and then you had multiple, like it was 3 or 4 really sloppy, lazy, undisciplined turnovers, and that still continues to be the Achilles heel for this Rockets team. And it was compounded by the fact like they had the couple lazy turnovers, and then they had an 8-second violation coming out of a timeout. Like that is borderline a benchable offense. Like if it hadn't been Kevin Durant who committed the 8-second violation, like that's a borderline offense that you get benched for. And you're like, hey, think about what the hell you just did, right? Lock in. Amen Thompson wound up the Rockets went on this like little spurt, this little run right after that period of lack of focus where they got some Amen Thompson free throws. He was getting downhill. Then you had a transition 3-pointer for Jabari Smith Jr. that was fed by Tari Eason, where the Rockets they were getting stops. They were getting out and running, right? They were moving faster. And then there was another transition play, a pass from Amen Thompson, I believe, that led to a Kevin Durant dunk in transition. And that brought the score back within a 2-possession game, 69-63. So that was another like little important stretch, a little important run that the Rockets went on where things could have gone really sideways right there at the top of the third quarter, but the Rockets stayed locked in. They were able to persevere, get through that stretch, and not let the game, get out of hand and let the Suns like run up the score and get a really big lead on them. There was a point a few possessions later, Amen Thompson was like in flow state or something. He dribbled the ball all the way up the length of the court, ignored everybody else, and just got to like his like ISO hezzy midi bag and knocked it down. A midi like pull up jumper after like setting up the offense in the half court and didn't even call for a screen or anything, just like ISO'd, got to his step back midi and tied the game up at 76. And I was like, what the hell is happening here? And then there was immediately, like, I think Amen turned it over like right after that. I really thought he was like about to lock in and like go like Super Saiyan mode for a second after hitting that shot. But in addition to kind of that, like that run, Jabari Smith Jr. had some really key moments during the Rockets kind of like comeback and kind of getting back into this game. He had a couple really big 3-pointers. He had a really big offensive rebound into a little short kind of fadeaway shot right at the cup. Just a really overall strong second half for Jabari after a relatively quiet first half. He had 14 points on 5 of 7 shooting in the second half compared to just 3 points on 1 of 4 shooting in the first half. So Jabari Smith Jr. showing up in a big way in the second half of this game. It really was, like, offensively, it was Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith Jr., and Amen Thompson that kind of carried the Rockets to the finish line in this one. And again, with it being such a defense first, defense oriented kind of affair, there were, tough shots that these guys were hitting, but you look up and down the score bug, right? Or the the box score, I should say. Pardon me. Sorry about the cough, guys. Jabari 17 points on 6 of 11 shooting. That's decent efficiency. Amen Thompson 17 points on 5 of 13 shooting. That's okay. Like, you didn't have any like crazy efficient nights from anybody because this was one of those just like slug it out type of games. And credit to the Rockets for not completely falling apart in the non-Kevin Durant minutes of this game. And that's where you had some of those buckets from Jabari Smith Jr., from Amen Thompson, from Reed Shepherd, right? Some from Tari, Eason. Like, you got much better all-around contributions in the non-Kevin Durant minutes to where you didn't get absolutely cooked in those minutes and lose the game when KD wasn't even on the floor, right? So a much better step in the right direction for a Rockets team that is going to have to be able to learn how to win some games without Alperen Şengün. Unfortunately, we'll get to his injury update here in just one moment, what it means for the team moving forward, as well as final thoughts from this game. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building, the energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are actually going to cost. That's where Game Time comes in. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the Game Time app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. Prices include fees up front, so the total is clear from the start. Whether it's an NBA game or another live event, everything is right there in one place. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let me get into final thoughts from this game. I will say a couple random tidbits here. First, I meant to shout them out earlier. Shout out to the Rockets broadcast crew for Rockets Trivia, hosted by Ryan Hollins and participated with Craig Ackerman and Vanessa Richardson. That was some fun, although my guy, Right guy, what are you doing with the trivia, getting the Alperen Şengün question wrong? Come on, if you're gonna be a trivia host, you got to have your answer explained from the jump. You were leading Vanessa and Craig astray. They were like, what player has a dad who was an all-star? What? That was, I mean, honestly, it was a great job by the broadcast crew to kind of keep fans entertained as we were going through the clock malfunctions early in the game. One other thing that I wanted to highlight that I wanted to talk about earlier, and wanted to make sure I didn't miss it in my notes. It really felt like in the third and in the fourth, when the Rockets regained momentum and took the lead originally in the game, it felt like one thing that they were doing a lot better is they were getting into their offense so much quicker, right? The reality is you're not going to be able to rely on transition buckets every possession of every game. You just can't. And realistically, this Rockets team hasn't been as locked in defensively as last year's team, like every possession, to be able to generate as many of those transition scoring opportunities as they did last season. And they're just a different overall team, right? They don't have as many transition weapons as they did last year. They're a slower, older overall team this year. So it's only natural that they're going to play a little bit slower and more in the half court. But even playing in the half court doesn't mean you have to play slow in the half court. One of my gripes with this Rockets team this season has been how slow they are all the time about initiating their offense, offensive sets. Like, they're walking the ball across and it's already, 18, 17 seconds left on the clock. And then they're getting their first screen of the possession at, I don't know, 14 seconds, 13 seconds left on the clock. And then by the time you have the first action, if the defense denies you on the first initial action, you're scrambling to get a second action put together, right? There was a stretch in the fourth where it felt like the Rockets, and they mentioned this on the broadcast, where it felt like the Rockets were being really intentional about getting into their offensive sets early. Steven Adams was setting these early screens for KD to where he could get downhill, or Amen Thompson could get downhill before the defense really had a chance to like get like boxes and elbows and really like crowd everybody's spacing. And so that felt like a really important takeaway from this game that hopefully the Rockets can build upon, because I feel like they have a tendency to get a little lethargic with their offense, a little slow at times, like initiating sets, and especially with no Alperen Şengün, right? When you're only got the one star player out there, it makes it even easier for defenses to hone in on what the Rockets are trying to do. So if you get into your sets quicker, if you make your decisions quicker, if you're just executing things faster on offense, things are going to look a lot crisper, a lot cleaner, and generally it probably leads to a lot more effectiveness and efficiency on offense as well, just getting into things a little bit faster. So that's hopefully a trend that we'll see continue for this team. Now, there's a difference between pressing and going too fast and moving too quickly versus like just playing with a little bit more urgency, a little bit more tempo. That's all. So I feel like that's what we saw out of the Rockets in the fourth quarter of this one. Shout out to Big Steven Adams, his return to the Rockets lineup in place of Alperen Şengün. 8 points, 11 rebounds, couple assists, had a steal, in 4 of 7 shooting in his 31 minutes of action. Didn't hit a single free throw, though, of his 4 attempts in this one. Hopefully, Steve-O will be able to hold down the fort with Clint Capela, backing him up for the foreseeable future, because Alperen Şengün is supposed to be out for the next 10 to 14 days, which is a pretty significant blow to this Rockets team. Obviously, nobody can replicate what Alperen Şengün does on this roster, but one thing that this will allow, I think there's a couple things to note with Alperen Şengün out for this next little period of time. One, it's going to force the Rockets to learn how to like survive in those non-star minutes, right? The non-Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün minutes, which will be a good tool for this team to figure out, to understand how to play without one of those two guys on the floor for later on, right? If you're in the postseason and one of them gets in foul trouble and then the other one needs to get a breather, like you're going to have some minutes maybe where those guys you're not always going to have one of them on the floor. So these will be important opportunities for Reed Shepherd, for Amen Thompson to learn how to grow and continue getting better at running the offense. But it's also going to be a really cool stretch for this team and for like Rockets fans to really rely right on Kevin Durant, because like everything's got to go through KD for this next little stretch, right? So this is going to be kind of like a vintage Kevin Durant led team for a little while, where everything goes through KD for better or for worse, right? And so you've got to find ways to maximize this version of this team playing through KD. And the way that they've played through KD while they were on their win streak without Alperen Şengün, right? Just go back to doing some of that. So it'll be a really interesting set of these next, like, I think it's like they're scheduled to play 8 games in the next 14 days. But if you're looking at like the optimistic side of the return timetable, it's possible Alperen Şengün could get back before the Rockets' really big game against the Thunder Thursday next week on the 15th. So that's like my optimistic timeline of return, but that's a really aggressive return timeline. So we'll see where Alperen Şengün's at in his recovery timetable. Wanted to highlight here really quickly Amen Thompson and Reed Shepherd before we shut this one down. Amen Thompson, I felt like, did a solid job in this game, doing a little bit of everything. 17 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, did have a few turnovers, but the most important thing that Amen Thompson did in this one was putting pressure on the Suns defense, right? When you see Amen Thompson with 6+ free throw attempts, right, I think it's a good game for him, because the amount of pressure that he puts on opposing team when he is getting downhill the way that he was in this game is undeniable, right? And it helps open things up, and it prevents defenses from just sitting on Amen Thompson as a non-shooter, right? Because if they're sitting on him and giving him, 15 feet of space away from the basket, and he's able to just get downhill and force the issue and draw fouls, then the defense has to stop living with that, and they have to actually start guarding him and taking him seriously on the perimeter instead of giving him a full head of steam. And that just further opens things up for his teammates. So liked seeing Amen Thompson be aggressive in this one, liked seeing him take the ball directly to the rim, not settling in this game, not settling for the wide open 3-pointers, even though the defense would gladly give them to him, and being consistent at the charity stripe. That's a big one, right? Like you can get to the charity stripe all day, but if you only hit 50%, 60%, whatever, it's going to feel like some wasted possessions here and there when you're splitting free throws all the time. But that's not the case with Amen Thompson. His free throw shooting has been a massive step, or has taken a massive step forward. And that's another great little like development point in his progression as a player, just in his overall career arc. One other note that I had here, like the chippiness in this game was funny. Like there was a point where Dylan and Jabari were lined up at the free throw line, and Jabari like dropped a pretty strong shoulder into Dylan Brooks's like chest and like knocked him a few feet off the free throw line, and the refs didn't say anything. And I think that's like a good moment by the officiating crew to like not tee up Jabari for that or something, because obviously former teammates, there's a lot of love out there. These guys, you know, they still care about each other. They still talk like pretty consistently, I'm pretty sure. And so just like seeing like little moments like that, moments of humanity between the players, is always a lot of fun. So overall, a very quality win for this Rockets squad against a very good Suns team. And I forget if I mentioned it earlier, but it's worth noting, right? Like weird kind of game for the Suns, coming off that huge emotional win against the Thunder on the road, and then getting stuck in OKC. Their plane didn't land in Houston. It's like 2 p.m. the same day of the game, which is like such a weird dynamic for players, because usually like you have like an afternoon nap or a schedule that you follow, or you miss shoot around in the morning. Like just a very weird dynamic for the Suns. So at least, you know, providing some context for why, you know, on the second night of a back-to-back after a really big win, you know, I don't want Suns fans marching in here and being like, you didn't talk about the scheduling and the plane and all that. Yeah, it all happened. And the Suns still lost. You know, show up, you play who's in front of you. So Rockets won the game, and that's that. And Reed Shepherd, really quickly on Reed off the bench, 11 points, 3 rebounds, couple assists, couple steals. There was one possession that I really loved from Reed where he got a poke check on Devin Booker from behind, right? It was early in the game, got a poke check on Devin Booker from behind. I believe it was Tari who recovered it, got it ahead to Kevin Durant, and then KD pitched it ahead to Reed, and he gets a wide open transition dunk off of it. Like, those moments, right? You can tell that the team is becoming more comfortable with Reed out there from a defensive standpoint, because, you know, they're almost counting on Reed to be able to get that deflection, to get that tip away from behind. That way you don't have to rely on Reed staying in front of his defender, and he can gamble on that kind of getting behind the play, getting that tip away. And then Tari, Eason, it was like Tari was ready for it. Like they were on the exact same page. As soon as Reed made his move, Tari was ready and in position to recover that tipped away ball pass, or the tipped away ball from Devin Booker. So just one of my favorite defensive possessions of the whole game. But I want to know your favorite moments. I want to know your reaction to Kevin Durant's insanely clutch 3-pointer, the game winner, the walk-off bucket of this one. I want your reaction to the chippiness from Dylan Brooks, all that good stuff. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.